Hello and welcome to the Digital Digest, your weekly breakfast of insights, tips and tricks and general information that will help anyone trying to move things forward in this digital accounting space. This show is brought to you both by the Digital Disruptors and SB Digital, which are pushing the boundaries in this digital world of accounting. And this episode is on Dext Prepare and ApprovalMax and tips and tricks on how best to use them. I'm your host, Ryan Pearcey, and I'm lucky enough to be joined by Sam King from XFE, who knows about this tech, uses it for his clients, and I think slightly in his business as well. So let's dive straight into a bit about Dext and ApprovalMax. So Sam, look, can you give us a quick summary? What are those tools?
Yeah, sure, Ryan. So Dext is really something that is initially used for sort of receipt capture to get the most out of your, your workflows and trying to automate the processing of the invoices initially. A lot of people see that's where Dext sort of stops as well, but we see it as almost the start, because then we can also really sort of go into deeper integrations with certain suppliers, or we can also maybe bring in sales from bespoke systems, and also the ability to then just ping it through to whichever accounting software you use, which is obviously Xero in our case. Alongside that, ApprovalMax is predominantly an approvals software. So for workflows such as purchase orders, purchase invoices, sales invoices, journals, there's all sorts of approvals now, but the whole purpose of ApprovalMax is twofold for us. The first is very much a case of giving clients who we do bookkeeping and outsource finance for a chance to actually take a look to see what's being processed to make sure they're happy with it. And secondly, for maybe larger clients we're doing a lot of the tech enablement for them to be able to actually use the approval workflows internally for their own team to deal with things such as schema delegations in particular.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I guess both Dext and ApprovalMax fit in that area that I'd call expense management, right? It's that getting information in, mostly supplier information, but as you say, it's built now beyond that, especially the ApprovalMax side. And I think what's a good place to touch on is actually when you should be bringing this technology in. Obviously, really, you need to be on cloud accounting software. You mentioned Xero, obviously you got QuickBooks Online, Free Agent, Sage Business Cloud, lots of those, but you kind of get the finance core in, and then what I recommend is the first place you go after that is the expense management side. Is that kind of how you approach it?
Yeah, it's I think that just as part of change management in general, that what clients are looking for and what we're looking for is those real kind of big hitters where it comes to those 20-30% efficiency gains almost overnight, and to be able to get the expense management in where even if you can't automate half the expenses, you've done the other half, and it just means it's a lot more straightforward to adopt some of the systems. It's quite funny because what we find when we put Dext into clients is they just can't believe that all of a sudden they don't have to do, well, I'd say anything, that's a stretch, but they have to do very little basically. And the most common question we sort of get is, which is meant in the nicest possible way, is that it? In terms of, is that all I need to do? Because they just can't believe it, that they just take a picture and, just demoing it to people where you drag something onto the screen that it says 8 out of 9 fields extracted immediately it's incredible, really.
Yeah. I've had it before where I've been asked to go into London to do a training session for clients, like face-to-face training session. And I have to explain, probably don't need this. And they've kind of insisted. And when I've done the demonstration, which took like 5 minutes to kind of run through the basics, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. You probably could have done this remotely. But yeah, we can kind of dive into the specifics of both software. But one thing that I do want to flag is I know there's different ways of using Dext Prepare and ApprovalMax together. One is how I call disconnected. So you go Dext into, say, Xero, and then from Xero to ApprovalMax and back into Xero. But you've also got a link from Dext into ApprovalMax and then into Xero. And there's two different approaches on that. Do you have a preference in which way you operate?
Not in particular, to be honest. It's normally driven by, I guess, when people join the journey, because there's quite a lot of clients who initially join the journey where you had to put it from Dext to Xero into awaiting approval, then ApprovalMax kind of sweeps it up from there. I'm a big fan of nowadays the direct sort of links between the software, so you know exactly where things are before they then hit zero in our case on the finance side of things. But to be honest, I've got no preference, because as long as people are using the workflows as efficiently as they can, that's a win to us anyway.
Definitely. And I know there are pros and cons of each one. I think there's some limitations if you link Dext directly into ApprovalMax on certain document types. So always, if you're looking to bring these tools in, talk to someone that's got some experience in it, such as Sam, and he'll be able to guide you on the best approach. But come on, let's dive into some of the specifics. So Dext Prepare, right? This is one of the oldest systems now in say the app ecosystem, but it has, I wouldn't say fundamentally changed. It's not needed to. The UI has been so good for so long. It's really easy to adopt. But if you were going to give some people that are listening, areas to focus on, what would you start with when bringing in Dext?
Okay. Yeah, good shout. So I do completely agree with you that I think it was, I wouldn't quite say before its time, because the technology was there anyway, but it was certainly the trailblazer for the OCR capture and all those bits. I would say the most important thing with anything you do, whether it's Dext, ApprovalMax, whatever software uses the setup, so really understand exactly how certain integrations will work. Spend some time looking at the documents that maybe you don't want to bring into the system. So things such as delivery notes and all those bits, because people can get quite scan happy or click happy and accidentally put them in. I think that one of my favourites is auto-publish, the ability to, based upon certain suppliers, for example, British Gas, it's going to be an energy bill, so why not automate that? And as soon as it goes in, it almost goes straight away, and even extend that by saying, let's add the payment as well. So I would say my favourite one is auto-publish, without a doubt, because it almost means that Dext acts as a kind of like a 24 hours a day, 7 day a week assistant for you, who does a lot of the kind of coding for you, because I'm probably going to get challenged on this, but who wants to do coding nowadays? Certainly not me. I'm a big fan of kind of setting rules and then letting the software do what it needs to do on that. So auto-publish is probably the big one. I do quite like the fetch functionality, in particular with the suppliers such as Amazon, just because it's a nightmare to try and get those receipts from Amazon at times without having to log in, etc. I am a little cautious on the fetch now, because more suppliers are obviously doing the multi-factor authentication, which means obviously we can't do that. And I just think that where you can automate it, let's do it. But likewise, let's make sure that we're only setting rules out for those suppliers that have got that kind of one-on-one relationship with a ledger code, tracking category, whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah, and for those that haven't used Fetch before, that is where you can connect Dext directly into the supplier account, supplier portal, and it basically extracts the invoice automatically without you needing to do anything. So yeah, I agree with you. Auto-publish, weirdly, is a massively underutilized tool inside Dext,
huge.
as it's kind of basic, I guess selling point. The whole thing that it can extract the information, brilliant, and then auto-publish it once you get comfort, and that's the main thing, right? Whenever I talk to clients, it's like, okay, start using it. You're going to want to look at everything first, because you're not going to trust the system, right? Why would you trust the system? But as soon as you start getting used to it, as soon as all you're doing is hitting publish without having to review anything or change anything, just switch out auto-publish on the rules.
Exactly.
And then we'll touch on, I guess, how that can work really well with ApprovalMax a bit later. But another area that is more recent, more recent functionality for Dext is line item extraction. Do you use that at all with your clients?
We don't tend to use it really with clients. I think there's one or two that do use it, but out of about 250, 300 clients on Dext, there's probably one or two that actually use it, because they more see the value and look at the source document that gets zapped across anyway from Dext to Zero. So it's kind of a redundant feature for us, to be honest. But I think the one that uses it, they need to track. It might be some sort of goods that go in, so they need to get the description. The other thing that quite openly, I'll admit that there's an additional cost to that normally, so we don't normally kind of go down that route, because most clients are very happy with the fact they got a copy of the invoice anyway with them. One thing just to extend on not just line items but the whole extraction is, I'm really fascinated in this space to see what e-invoicing is going to be doing to the likes of Dext, the likes of Zero, all those bits anyway, because to me, that will make these things even slicker, because you're going to get 100% accuracy on things. So that's just something to almost throw in there as I'd like to see what Dext are doing to do something more on that, really.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to completely change the way, once again, we interact with processing of supplier invoices, because they should, once you connect two systems together, should come directly in. And as you say, you can just code, if it's this type of transaction, includes this wording, it can go into this area. I think it's going to take a while for the systems to get that automated. Dex is perfectly placed to really capitalize on that if it can. I'm kind of building on what you're saying from the line items. Yeah, we do it on an ad hoc basis with clients, right? And it's not we go turn on for all clients. Usually it's like, oh, this supplier would really benefit from having this line items turned on. You go down in that rule. If you're usually having to split things, then do that. The other thing, and you've made a really good point on this, is that the beauty with Dext is that you don't always have to extract the information. Like, everyone's so used to having lines written in their finance system, but because you've got the attachment in there, you go into, once it's in the nominal account, you can just click on the button to see what the attachment is. So you've really got to think about, do I need to get this information in? Really pull back. And I know you'll be used to kind of processing a certain way, but you need to go, do I need to operate in this way anymore?
Yeah, that's quite a big one.
Right, the one final bit I'm just going to bring in, because it's very recent, not even fully released from Dext yet, is Dextension. Now, this is a plugin, it's a web browser plugin that links Dext to Xero and also Dext to QuickBooks Online. I know that's coming out. And essentially what it does is superpower both tools. So when you're in Dext, it will bring in relevant information from your Xero account, and similar when you're in Xero, bring information from your Dext account. And what that does mean is it's I guess not weaknesses, but little areas that you think, could be, enhanced slightly, and the information is in the other place. It really speeds things up. So if you are a bookkeeping team and you do a lot of processing, I would strongly advise looking at Dextension if you are using both Xero and Dext, or QuickBooks Online and Dext. And this is something that is not fully out on the extension store. But if you contact Dext directly, they'll probably be able to give you a link to it. If you want to know more about it, we have just interviewed Sabby Gill on the podcast, so please do check that out once that's released. And we talk a bit about what Dextension is. Right, let's move into ApprovalMax, because we're focused a lot on Dext. Let's jump into that. I know this is a tool that we both love, and we use it in Scrut and Bland as well, and it has completely changed the way we operate. So, from an ApprovalMax perspective, mate, what is it that you kind of go after that? How do you use the tool effectively with your clients?
So a lot of our clients have the need to use purchase orders within their systems. As I mentioned earlier, Xero is our kind of core ledger product we use. Xero isn't great when it comes to the purchase orders, in my opinion. It's quite a basic workflow with very little, if any, really approval process other than somebody going in manually to do it, which doesn't really kind of fit our clients. So where we use ApprovalMax is to extend that functionality of Xero, the ability to pivot on every single field in Xero that we need to, and also then restrict certain requesters on the approvals or approvers themselves by certain criteria. Now, a lot of the clients that we have on ApprovalMax, they will have tight schemes of delegation. So it means that they have to adhere to the scheme. And the way that I describe it to clients is ignoring all the tech, ignoring everything else. The key focus of ApprovalMax is to protect everybody in that finance team, to make sure that they are feeling like they have their back covered by the system. So nothing can go through the system unless somebody really does sort of try to bypass things, but even then it'll be flagged. So I think the key thing for us is that tighter control when it comes to the ordering process, and then obviously the rest sort of follows when we get invoice approval, even journal approval, all those bits as well.
Yeah, it's crazy how much that ApprovalMax have built out. It's pretty much, if you need to approve anything inside your system, ApprovalMax can do it, right? And it's incredibly customizable. And I think that what's great is there was even bits where someone asked the other day, it's like, I'd really like to just not be approving, but just kind of keeping an eye out on certain processes. And you now got this watcher role where you can kind of just keep a view on. You're not doing anything, but you can just keep an eye on what's going through the system. The one thing I always say when talking to clients that are looking at ApprovalMax is, please don't lift and shift what you're doing, because you'll be used to paper going everywhere. Everything's locked down. The finance department, they're having to do a lot of it. Actually think about who needs to approve it and where's the risk. So you can put levels of, finance. So if it's above a certain amount of value, then it needs to be approved. If it's below, it can be automated. So really come down to where the risk is and start simple and build out. If you try and build something really complex from the start, it gets really, finicky to try and make those changes. Look, as you say, purchase orders critical, and the matching of purchase orders right inside the system is great. And even like goods receipt notes, you can do it to some extent through for ApprovalMax, so you can kind of digitize that entire process. But the other bit that I guess I want to touch on is the budget side. Now this is, I guess, relatively new for us and how we work, but I think that's a completely different way. It adds that level of visibility for clients. So should we be able to talk a little bit about kind of the matching against budgets, Sam?
Yeah, so it's a feature that we recommend to some clients, but not all clients, and I'll explain why a little later on. But the budgets, they feed directly in from your finance system, like Xero, and we've got a lot of people who might be a budget holder of a certain ledger code in one of the tracking categories. So say site A, ledger code B, whatever it is. So that will suck in, and then you can match the different tracking against the different sort of criteria in ApprovalMax, and then it will basically do a budget check for you and warn you if something's going to go over budget. Now, the bit I particularly like about it, and 5 years ago, if you talked to me about commitment accounting, I would have no idea what somebody's talking about because it was almost like an alien concept to me. But for those that don't know, commitment accounting is looking at both the approved items in your finance system, but also what's set to be approved. And that's the bit that ApprovalMax does really well in terms of then saying that this is what's already been approved in ApprovalMax, and this is what's set to be approved. The only sort of caveat we have with the budget checker is we make sure that people are aware that all of the transactions that's looking at are all the transactions in ApprovalMax. Just again, it's part of the setup to make sure that you're understanding the criteria, and getting somebody as an expert to actually set the system up is crucial, because otherwise people could always fall down on that.
Yeah, definitely. That transition period on any system is like, okay, you can only look at what's already gone through the system. Anything that's in that period before is going to be exempt. So don't miss. I always kind of bring in budget checking, maybe from year 2 onwards, where actually we've got the history in there. It's the same from looking at reporting once you're sure you got your data correct. I guess the other thing I want to touch on is when these tools combine, and the beneficial parts of kind of bringing these tools. And we talked about that auto publish in Dext. I find that when you've got Dext and ApprovalMax in place, you just get so much more trust about auto publish, because you basically can set auto publish across pretty much anything once you're happy it's going to the right nominal account. And then you're picking up those little nuances like allocating to departments, etc., inside ApprovalMax. And touching on that budget checking, it's empowering your teams. So, if you've got a department, they set their own budget. As all the transactions going through, they're digitally approving those against that budget. They're being empowered to operate, and I think that's critical. But I think the other thing that I do want to highlight to people is we've talked a lot about Dext and ApprovalMax. That is, the focus of this show, but there are other tools, and I just want to touch a little bit about when you might want to consider both Dext and ApprovalMax and I guess more enhanced tech and what those could look like. So when a business is starting out, say you're a single employee, in a director-owned business, you probably don't need the likes of Dext and ApprovalMax. You might want Dext on its own. You could use the likes of HubDoc if you're using Xero. But as soon as you start getting a team and you start, having to spread those responsibilities out, that's when I think bringing in Dext and ApprovalMax is critical. But you do then at some point start outgrowing it. You just need levels of complexity. And at what point, I guess, do you start looking at other solutions, Sam? And what are those solutions?
Yeah, so you're dead right with what you said about the kind of the scale of the businesses, but I would say that the point in which we start looking at other solutions is if people want to do even more with things. So, for example, they want their order system to punch out to a particular supplier to then, or like Amazon as an example, to then fill a basket to automatically go through an approval process there. Some people might want, although Dext and ApprovalMax has that really good sort of link between it, people might want a more solid sort of goods receipting process, or they might actually want everything in one place. So a Lightyear of this world, a Planergy of this world, they're the sort of things we'll look at, which what I describe as full-on purchase-to-pay systems that link again directly with Xero. For example, Lightyear, I love the fact that you can get the different line items, and then you can do the statement reconciliations automatically. Personally, I don't do statement reconciliations because I'm not saying the statement's right, but then Lightyear will actually do that for you, which makes it easier. Planergy, that's my new kind of favorite child at the moment on the purchase to pay, because it's great. The ability to have almost everything in one place and link to even websites that maybe haven't got links directly, so a Screwfix this world, to be able to post sort of a basket, etc. So I guess going back to the question, Dext and ApprovalMax is fantastic up to a certain size. I don't necessarily feel the size is based upon turnover or anything like that. I think it's more based upon your finance team, the structure, and also how much controls you want in place over a certain process. If, for example, the CFO, regardless of what we do, wants to approve every single item, then they might as well stay on a rather kind of one-tier solution. If they want all sorts of different things going on, then they're probably better to look at an all-singing, all-dancing solution.
Yeah, mate. Look, I don't think I could have summarised that any better myself. So I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this week's show. Hopefully this episode has provided all you that are listening and watching valuable insights that you can take forward. Please do check out the show notes for links to Digital Disruptors, SB Digital, XFE, and every bit of tech that we've referenced through this show. If you want to ensure that you catch future episodes, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you look out for the release on every Thursday morning. I look forward to speaking to you next week.